From Wake Forest to the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials, this man has run insanely impressive performances. Some that have gotten him to be able to sign with Rabbit Running and claim an individual marathon title at the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon. A former RoadCCG athlete as well. This is Nate Guthals. Thanks for joining me. It's a big pleasure of mine to be able to speak with somebody like you, as well as a RunCCG alum. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of learn more about your story and have you on the podcast. So thanks for doing it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for inviting me on.
No problem. The first question I always want to ask people is just kind of their journey into running and what made them kind of start the sport. I know obviously you ran in the NCAA and the professional level as well, but how did it start?
I guess I first kind of picked up running as a way to stay in shape for other sports that I was playing. I played soccer, basketball when I was younger, and um, running was kind of just a thing that I was able to do in the off season. Ran a little bit of track in middle school and just sort of little events around that time frame that I kind of, I guess, realized that I had a little bit of talent in the running world, and it kind of blossomed into something a bit more than just staying in shape.
Yeah. And so in high school, you probably took that maybe to a more serious level. What did that kind of process look like when you were being recruited by places or Wake Forest? Like, what was that transition like from high school into that NCAA realm?
So, I guess in high school, I wouldn't say I was really recruited all that strongly. I I didn't have the greatest times as a high schooler. I think the fastest I ran, I was primarily an 800 runner at that point, and I ran 155 my senior year. So especially compared to nowadays, nothing special at all. Um, but my high school coach was really helpful in that process. He had some connections, specifically with the coaches at Wake, and was kind of able to get a foot in the door for me there, and uh, I guess helped that I had some good academic accolades as well, that
Yeah,
they were able to kind of bring that in to offer me a bit of a scholarship also.
that's awesome. Especially being able to run in a conference as good as the ACC, which at the time was probably the best conference in cross country. What was that transition like from going kind of like unrecruited into that more of that ACC kind of talent? What did that look like, and how was the training a lot different between high school and running at a place like Wake?
It was for sure a big step up. I think I was maybe a bit shell shocked my freshman year that uh, kind of the talent was just so much higher than I was used to.
Yeah,
So it made the 800 real tough. I kind of realized that maybe I didn't have the foot speed to run the 800 and be competitive at that level. So that was, I guess, the end of my freshman year in college was kind of when I started transitioning towards longer distances, and um, that was I guess, going into my sophomore year was the first time that I really got exposed to running cross country, and so
okay.
running a lot more mileage with that, and kind of just moving somewhere where I felt like I could be a bit more successful based on the skills that I had.
I love the story of everyone's like first workout at their new school. I feel like almost everybody gets dropped out of nowhere, even if you're a Foot Locker champ, and you gotta take the realization of like, whoa, like this is a very different competitive field that I was used to in high school, and then making that jump into the longer distances. Um, Kind of take me through that process of later in college, what you were able to run, and why you ended up kind of moving that direction post college as well.
So I I guess I didn't really find a. I had some success at the 800. I ran 150, or I split 150 in a relay. So
Okay.
not sure how how accurate that time is, but I ran 152 in the open as well. Um, but it kind of felt like maybe I would have a better shot at the mile 1500.
Yeah.
And then I was also having a bit of success in cross country. Um, we had a pretty young team while I was there, and so there was definitely a lot of opportunity there where that we didn't have a lot of upperclassmen who were competing in cross country, and um, kind of just gave me a place that I could grow into a role and have a bit more impact on the team.
Yeah. I think that's an important part too of just trying to find a place where you can help a team out, especially in the NCAA. I think a lot of people find themselves in similar situations of, being able to be a competitive high schooler at and some sort of speed, and then jumping into the distance later on. But then you ultimately decided to kind of hop into half marathoning and marathoning. What was that transition like from going from the 1500 all the way to the marathon? Like, what made you make that jump?
Um, so there wasn't really a whole lot of intention behind it at first. Um, I had a bit of an injury after cross country my senior year, and didn't run real well for that track season, and I guess maybe felt like I had a little bit of unfinished business with running, but wasn't really sure how to direct that
Yeah.
once I graduated. So a number of the guys from Wake, we kind of had this idea of, hey, we should all run the Boston Marathon together and kind of have it as a way to get everybody together after being away from school, and kind of catch up. And so that was my first intro into the marathoning world, where it was kind of just go run a qualifier to get into Boston. And I think at that time it was like 3:05 that you had to
Oh
run.
wow.
So for a former college runner, not really that high of a level,
Right.
but kind of just did that, and then we continued that tradition for a couple of years, and I was kind of just running as much as I needed to stay in shape to hit that qualifying time for Boston.
Yeah.
Um, so I had a number of years where I was in the like 250 to 3 hour range, just not really doing anything competitive. And then as the rest of the group kind of started to taper off as far as who else was still running, um,
Right.
it was kind of I got to a point where I was making a decision like, do I want to keep doing this? Like, should I actually try seriously training for it, or do I just give it up? And so that was around 2018 when I
Okay.
really started taking some marathon training seriously and doing a bit more focused work, and um, went back to Boston that year, and um, had a pretty big jump and ran 231.
Oh wow.
So
What was the difference just between those couple of years? Was it just like literally taking it seriously and running a little bit more, or
yeah, that was the main thing. So those years when I was not really taking it seriously, I'd say I was probably doing 30, 40 miles a week, maybe, not really doing
okay?
any sort of workouts. And then leading up to Boston that year, I probably had 6 months where I was running 80 to 100 miles a week, and
Wow.
um, started working out with some guys in the Kansas City area, and just actually put some effort towards it.
And then you kind of transitioned into training with RunCCG as well at the time, um, and you were able to reach a lot of new heights. It seemed like compared to what you had done before. What was that experience like, training with RunCCG and kind of getting that, like, I guess, expertise or like more focused training, um, as you kind of developed into the marathon?
I would say it was definitely good to have a coach who could provide some additional insight into like what I was doing. And um, I was kind of, prior to starting working with Tim with Run CCG, I was kind of just seeing things that people would post on social media and throwing together workouts here and there, and then transitioning to working with a coach and actually having like a long-term training plan. I think that helped out a lot. Um, I think also having a coach gave me somebody who would maybe push me a little bit more to
Yeah.
see what they thought I could do, um, which that helps a lot, having, I guess, some external motivation as well as whatever you're motivating yourself with.
Yeah, some sort of accountability as well in terms of
Mhm.
just getting training done. But you were able to run really, really well. And it's weird because our other coach, Catton, was actually a Wake alum as well. So it's it's funny that there's two guys now. But had higher goals at the time of Indianapolis. What were those? Was it just qualifying for the trials at that point?
So I had the minimum standard to qualify for the trials, and then
Right.
at that point they were kind of segmenting people who had qualified into like an A standard and a B standard,
Okay.
and I believe the A standard was 215.
Wow.
So I kind of had the idea that I might be in shape to run that kind of time, and was I guess there wasn't a huge difference between what the A standard and B standard meant, but I thought it would be cool to hit that kind of time.
Right. And kind of get in that front corral potentially. Um,
Mhm.
when so you ran the Houston half between Indy and the Olympic trials,
Yeah, yeah.
and you were able to run a PR of 65:59 there. What were the expectations going into that race, and how did you feel that that went?
I guess that was kind of a tune-up race for the trials. It was, I think, about 4 or 5 weeks out from the
Okay.
trials, so um, kind of just getting a gauge of where exactly my fitness was at that point, and
Right.
um, obviously I wanted to run a fast time, but it wasn't the main focus at that point.
Yeah, just trying to figure out where you were at pace wise for the full, and then qualifying for the Olympic trials, getting there, running in that race. What was that feeling like, and how was the experience of racing at such an elite level at that point?
It was pretty crazy. I guess it's the only Olympic trials I've been a part of, but
Right.
I think it was one of the largest ones that there's ever been. So obviously a big a big field of competitors, and then also quite a lot of crowd support. I think the city of Atlanta did a great job with that event, and
Yeah.
um, maybe the crowd support and I guess just the atmosphere of the race got me a little bit excited. I ran a bit too quick early on in that race, and ended up having to drop out, but it was still a great experience.
Yeah, I think just getting to that level is an insane field and feat. But obviously, Atlanta is kind of historic, hosting the Olympics. Peachtree, that's got to be an awesome kind of experience to be able to be in that kind of race. And then I wanted to ask you a little bit about just the Rabbit sponsorship and being able to run with them. What was that kind of like? Did it feel like gratifying at all to be like, I've qualified for the Olympic trials. Now I have some sort of like brand ambassadorship. What was that feeling like?
Yeah, I guess that was pretty cool. I didn't really have an idea of where I wanted to go with running outside of trying to run fast myself. So I guess having a little bit of maybe extra motivation there as representing a brand was nice. It was kind of a funny story getting started with them. It, you kind of have to apply for the team, and there's certain standards they have for different levels of the team. And when I initially submitted for that, it was uh, prior to running grandmas, in
Okay.
2019, so I didn't really have a whole lot of race results to point to as far
Yeah.
as why I deserved a spot. Um, so I ended up starting with them as more of their just like generic brand ambassador team, where there wasn't really a whole lot of support or anything,
Yeah.
and I guess had kind of talked with some people through the process about how like is there a chance that if I run faster this year, like I could get moved up or whatever, and so running grandmas and qualifying for the trials and then going and winning Indy, that allowed me to kind of get a little bit more recognition from the company and uh, a bit more support from them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially, the story that you've had along the way, just to just be able to have a backing of a brand is pretty surreal. It sounds like, at least, from our perspective as well. And I think Tim is super proud. He still loves to talk about it. And it's an awesome accomplishment to be an Olympic Trials Qualifier, especially during that time. I want to ask you kind of three quick questions to kind of finish out the episode. My first question for you is your best memory from track and field or your career in general.
I would say that the most memorable moment I have um, was from running at Wake my I guess it was my sophomore year during indoor season at our conference championship. Uh, we were running the DMR, and I was in the 800 leg on that, and uh, this was the time that I ran my fastest split ever, and I we weren't we were a pretty young team, like I mentioned before, and didn't really have any, I guess, hopes of. We didn't feel like we would be real competitive, I
Yeah,
guess, but um, we were close to the front when I got the baton that race, and um, I was able to run a lot faster than I thought I was capable of, and kind of put us in the mix to be competitive and going into the anchor leg, and it was just a cool experience being part of a team as well. Like I feel
yeah,
like I've always performed better on relays in that
yeah.
sort of situation when you've got other people counting on you, it makes it a little easier to push yourself.
You got the pressure going, especially at an ACC championship.
Yeah.
uh, what did you guys finish in that race?
Um, I'm not sure. I think maybe fifth or sixth.
Oh wow, that's
Um,
awesome.
we had a guy who was a freshman running the mile or the 1600 leg of that, and um, going up against people like Ryan Hill was at NC State at that
Oh
point,
man,
and I think he probably split 358, 359, which was
yeah,
up there as far as times that were being run those
yeah.
days.
Yeah, that's insane. But an awesome accomplishment. My other question is your best piece of advice for younger athletes coming into the NCAA and their experiences.
I would say, gosh, there's probably so much that I could talk about. Um, I don't know, just having confidence in yourself and maybe like taking some ownership of where you're going with your training or whatever it is, your direction with school. Um, I think sometimes I kind of coasted through things and let those decisions come to me rather than being proactive about them. And looking back, I might make some slightly different decisions if I could do things again. But
Yeah. And my last question is who are your top three favorite athletes right now to watch?
hmm, I guess it's always fun to watch people who are pushing the sport to new limits. So maybe not currently, but the last 5 years or so, Kipchoge obviously
Yeah.
has been a big one with marathoning. I guess on the track, um, watching Jakob Ingebrigtsen,
Yeah,
always cool to
insane.
see. Um, I think it's cool to see somebody kind of embrace the villain role a little bit and
Yes.
um, just kind of run with that and um, see somebody else.
I love Connor Mance right now. I feel like he's a pretty awesome athlete to watch.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Yeah, so you're saying your top two are Kipchoge and watching Jakob Ingebrigtsen on the track. Um, I feel like watching Connor Mance right now too, as an American marathoner, is an insane feat as well. Kind of pushing that sport forward. Um,
yeah, that group has definitely been fun to follow along with, and I guess yeah, seeing how they're helping push American marathoning back to a competitive on the international level is pretty cool.
yeah, it's awesome. Makes you feel like you have a shot, you know.
Yeah,
Well, thanks again, Nate, for taking the time and talking about your story. It's a very unique story and one that we're all proud of at RunCCG, and I'm sure you're proud of as well. And yeah, so I just wanted to thank you for the time, and yeah, I appreciate it.
of course. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to be able to share a little bit.
No problem.